The man walked in without a smile, just confidence, the kind of confidence that made people uncomfortable when it came wrapped in dark skin and a silent stare. He didn't introduce himself with flair. He didn't need to. The name he gave was an alias. The room he booked was under a shell company. And the building he entered? He owned it. Every inch, every brick. But the receptionist didn't see a billionaire. She saw a problem. A threat. Maybe even a trespasser. And within minutes, she pressed a silent alarm. The revolving doors of the Parkstone Plaza spun lazily that morning, ushering in the usual flow of corporate tenants, visiting executives, and over-caffeinated interns balancing Starbucks trays. But when the tall, well-built black man stepped through them alone, silent, dressed in an understated charcoal suit and no visible ID badge, he didn't blend in, not to Claire Whitmore, the new front desk receptionist, who had been trained to recognize potential security concerns even if no one used those exact words. Claire had been on the job just 3 days. She was 24, eager to prove herself in the high-stakes world of executive leasing, and already felt out of her depth. The other women at the desk laughed easily with clients and name-drop board members. Claire still stumbled over sweet numbers. Her blazer sleeves were a little too long, and she hated how she blushed when people asked her things she didn't know. So when the man stepped up to the desk and said, in a deep, precise voice, "Devin Cole, I have a private room on 38 under DC Holdings." Her nerves kicked into overdrive. She tapped frantically into the system, scanning the morning's appointments. There were bookings under multiple companies: Ambertech, Marlowe Advisors, Riedel Private Wealth, but no one named Devin Cole. And nothing under DC Holdings either. Claire looked up, forcing a smile. "I'm sorry, I don't see a reservation under that name. Could it be listed under another party?" Devin didn't blink. "No, that's the name. Check again." She hesitated. He wasn't rude, wasn't raising his voice, but something about the way he stood there, calm, composed, unreadable, made her uneasy. He wasn't performing the way she was used to executives performing. No cheerful small talk, no visible laptop or assistant. Just him, alone, and he didn't even ask for water. They always ask for water. Behind her desk, her hand slid discreetly under the counter. Her fingers found the silent panic button. "Just in case. Security will help you sort this out," she said, trying to sound helpful. Devin raised a brow. "Security? Yes, sir. They'll verify credentials." He glanced at the clock. 8:52 a.m. "I'm 8 minutes early," he said. "That's all." Claire swallowed. "Sir, if you'll just wait to the side." But Devin was already walking calmly toward the elevators. She called after him, voice rising. "Sir, you can't go up without clearance." But Devin didn't respond, didn't run, didn't even look back. That's when the two security guards, both white, stocky, and visibly eager to act, appeared from the hallway near the service entrance. One blocked the elevator door as Devin reached for the button. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the elevator," the taller guard said. "Do you have ID? This floor is for scheduled corporate guests only." Devin turned slowly to face them. His tone stayed even. "I told the receptionist I booked the AM in 3810. DC Holdings." Claire stood behind the desk, arms crossed now, watching. "There's nothing under that name," she said flatly. Devin looked at her, not angry, not shocked, just tired. "This is how it starts," he said quietly. One of the guards frowned. "Excuse me." Devin didn't answer. Instead, he calmly pulled out his phone. Not to make a call, not to check an email. He simply opened his calendar app and tilted it toward them. There, clearly visible, was an appointment block titled 9, All Parkstone Plaza Suite 3810 DC Holdings. The guard blinked, then looked at Claire. "Still not on the list," she said. He could have made that entry himself. Devin gave a small, humorless laugh. "Of course, because if I'm not on your list, I can't possibly be legitimate." The shorter guard stepped forward now. "Sir, we'll have to ask you to leave." Devin slipped the phone back into his pocket. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. No protest, no threat, no attempt to force his way past. Instead, he offered the smallest of nods, then walked toward the front doors, flanked by two guards. Like a criminal caught mid-heist, Claire returned to her seat, tapping her nails against the desk. The knot in her chest loosened. She had followed protocol. She'd protected the building, done what she was trained to do. But in the back of her mind, a strange feeling lingered. The man never raised his voice, never shouted, never pleaded. That last look he gave her? It wasn't one of anger. It was disappointment. And somewhere on the 38th floor, a suite remained untouched, waiting for the man who, according to their system, didn't exist. The glass doors of Parkstone Plaza whispered shut behind him as Devon Cole stepped outside into the cool morning air. The moment they closed, the guards retreated back inside like nothing had happened. No apologies, no further questions. Just another day. Devon stood there quietly, staring up at the building he had owned for nearly 4 years. Parkstone was one of his quieter acquisitions, a jewel tucked away in plain sight. He didn't flaunt it, didn't slap his name on the side like so many ego-driven moguls. He didn't need to, but this morning, something stung. Not because they didn't recognize him. That part he was used to. Devon Cole had built an empire specifically on not being recognized, moving like shadow through boardrooms, buying blocks, through silent holding firms, letting others chase clout while he bought control. What stung was the ease with which they erased him. He wasn't wearing a hoodie. He wasn't loud. He wasn't confrontational. All he did was exist in that lobby, and that was enough for Claire and her clipboard to treat him like a trespasser. He exhaled slowly, pulled out his phone, and tapped a name. The call connected after one ring. "Marcia," he said simply. "We've got a problem." 10 floors up, Marcia Lynn, VP of Commercial Leasing and Devon's most trusted operations manager, was already scrolling through security footage in horror. "I saw it," she said quickly. "I was watching the feed. I didn't realize they were talking to you at first. They had your back turned. Then I saw them walk you out and Devon. I am so sorry." Devon's voice didn't rise. It never did. "I want everyone downstairs called into conference room within the hour," he said. "Reception, leasing staff, security." Marcia nodded, already typing. "And have someone pull up all booking logs for this morning. Cross-check against DC Holdings. I want to know if they actually looked or just assumed I didn't belong." He hung up before she could respond. Back in the lobby, Claire was laughing with one of the leasing interns, now relaxed and confident, riding the post-confrontation adrenaline. She was still proud of how she'd handled it. "I mean, come on," she whispered. "He shows up with no ID, no appointment, looking all intense. Did he really think he could bluff his way into a private suite? These guys watch too many Netflix shows." The intern chuckled, half listening. She didn't notice the building's assistant manager step off the elevator and quietly hand her a sealed note. Claire frowned as she opened it. "Please report to conference room on the 10th floor at 10 o'clock. For an emergency all-staff meeting regarding this morning's incident." She blinked. Incident? What incident? She prevented an incident. She straightened her blazer, confusion starting to settle into her shoulders. At exactly 10 o'clock, the glass conference room filled with staff. The mood was casual at first. People thought it was some sort of protocol meeting. Maybe a tenant had complained about parking. Maybe the espresso machine broke again. Then Marcia walked in, tablet in hand. Behind her, Devon Cole. Claire felt her stomach twist. Whispers rippled like a dropped stone in water. "Wait, that's the guy from earlier. Why's he with Marcia? Who is he?" Devon stood at the head of the table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone stilled the room. "This morning," he said, "I arrived for a meeting I scheduled 2 weeks ago in Suite 3810. It was under DC Holdings, one of my privately managed companies. I checked in at the front desk, like anyone else. I wasn't wearing a badge. I didn't drop names. I simply gave the reservation name and asked to go up." He paused. "I was told I wasn't on the list, that I couldn't possibly have booked the space. Then security escorted me out of the building I own." Dead silence. Claire felt a strange dizziness press into her chest. "No, this can't be real. He owns the..." Marcia stepped forward now. "To be absolutely clear, Mr. Cole is not a tenant. He's the owner of this building. And more than that, he is a stakeholder in every major commercial real estate holding within a 4-block radius. You didn't fail a guest. You failed the person who signs your paychecks. One of the guards shifted awkwardly. Someone dropped a pen. Devon's voice returned, calm but razor sharp. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a reflection of how quickly some people make decisions based on appearance. I didn't wear a watch today that screamed wealth. I didn't come in with a PR team. I came as myself, and that made me invisible to some of you. He turned, locking eyes with Claire, not with cruelty, not with hatred, but with that same cold disappointment from earlier. Claire opened her mouth. Mr. Cole, he held up a hand. No need to explain. Your reaction said enough. He turned back to the room. There's going to be a review of all front-facing staff immediately. Every name, every hire. I didn't spend years building anonymous wealth to be treated like a trespasser in my own space. And I refuse to let that happen to any of our future guests who don't look like what you expect. With that, he walked out, not with drama, not with rage, just authority. And silence thicker than steel. 38 floors above the lobby, behind a wall of soundproof glass and mahogany paneling, Marcia Lynn stared at the surveillance feed, her eyes narrowing. She was sipping her second jasmine tea of the morning when she saw him, Devon Cole, being flanked by security guards like a shoplifter. Her heart skipped. Are they out of their minds? She muttered, setting the mug down with a sharp clink. She knew that man. Everyone in upper-tier commercial real estate knew that man. You didn't forget Devon Cole, even if you only met him once. He was the ghost billionaire, the whispered name behind countless transactions. He didn't attend ribbon cuttings, didn't pose with mayors, didn't show up on the Forbes front page. But developers, city officials, and venture capital firms all moved when he spoke. And when he bought big. Marcia had once been in the same room with him 5 years ago, at a private equity roundtable in Tokyo. He didn't say much, but when he did, the whole table stopped chewing their Kobe beef and listened. So, to see him now, being escorted from the lobby by her staff, on his own property, it was like watching a cop arrest the chief of police and not know it. She snatched up the phone, stabbing the speed dial for front desk. It rang twice. Front desk, came Claire's voice. Claire, this is Marcia Lynn. Stop whatever is happening right now. Claire stammered. Ma'am, there was an unauthorized that menu called security on. Marcia hissed. That's Devon Cole. There was silence on the line. I don't have anyone by that name on the appointment list. He said DC Holdings, but DC Holdings is his company. Marcia snapped. That's his holding trust. It owns buildings across 3 states, including this one. Check the deed records, Claire. He owns the Parkstone Plaza. Claire's breath hitched audibly through the line. I didn't know. I thought he wasn't listed. You thought he was a threat, Marcia interrupted coldly. Because he didn't look like a billionaire. Because he didn't fit your picture of who walks into a building like this with authority. I didn't mean. Marcia didn't wait for the apology. You need to find him. Now. But Devon wasn't in the lobby anymore. He had left through the front door as calmly as he'd arrived. The guards hadn't even put a hand on him. There had been no need. He wasn't there for a fight. He was there for a lesson. And he had already learned what he needed to know. Elsewhere, in a waiting boardroom on the 38th floor, a dozen partners from an international wealth consortium sat around a long table, checking their watches. They were there for a private discussion with Mr. Cole about a massive infrastructure fund. There were no press releases, no paper trail. The room was reserved under DC Holdings for privacy, just the way Devon liked it. But now their host was missing. No one had seen him. No one could reach him. At exactly 9:20 a.m., the assistant to the lead investor leaned over and whispered, "Should we be worried?" At 9:23, the head of the fund received a brief text on his phone from Devon Cole himself. It read, "Meeting postponed. We'll follow up. Change of venue." No explanation, no emotion, but the message was clear to those who understood. Something had gone very wrong. Downstairs, Marcia stormed into the lobby just as Claire was shakily explaining to the head of security what had happened. Claire's face was pale. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. He didn't raise his voice, she said. He didn't yell or demand anything. He just looked at me like I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. Marcia didn't speak. She walked right past her, heels clicking sharply on the polished marble floor. Then she pulled out her phone and called the CEO's private number. It went straight to voicemail. She knew what that meant. He wasn't interested in talking. He was watching. And when Devon Cole watched, it wasn't for entertainment. It was to decide what came next, too. Hours had passed since Devon Cole had been quietly escorted out of the lobby. The receptionist's phone rang sharply. The voice on the other end was brisk, commanding her to come immediately to the executive conference room on the 40th floor. Heart pounding, Claire gathered her things and took the elevator up. The conference room was already crowded. Security officers, leasing managers, and the entire front desk team had been summoned. At the far end stood Marcia Lynn, the senior operations manager, a sharp-eyed woman who never tolerated mistakes. Beside her stood a striking man in a tailored suit, his posture relaxed but authoritative. It was Devon Cole. Claire's breath hitched. Marcia stepped forward, clearing her throat. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began. "I want to introduce you to someone very important. This is Mr. Devon Cole." She paused as heads turned toward him. "Mr. Cole owns this building." Gasps rippled through the room. Claire's cheeks burned with embarrassment. She felt all eyes on her, the receptionist who had called security on the owner of the entire property. Devon smiled faintly but didn't speak. Instead, he let Marcia continue. "Mr. Cole had a meeting scheduled this morning, an investment discussion that could bring in over $50 million to expand the building's operations," Marcia explained. Clearly, there was a breakdown in communication and judgment this morning. Instead of welcoming Mr. Cole, our team questioned him and called security without verifying who he really was. "That kind of behavior is unacceptable," Devon finally spoke, his voice calm but cutting through the tension like a blade. "This morning's experience was a test. A test to see how well the people who work here understand professionalism, respect, and the importance of seeing beyond assumptions." He glanced at Claire. "I wasn't angry when I was stopped, but I was deeply disappointed. Not in you personally, but in the culture that made it possible." Claire swallowed hard. The room was silent. Hanging on his every word, Devon's gaze swept the room again. "Assuming I didn't belong here because of how I look, because I wasn't dressed like money? That's the real problem. Power isn't about appearances. It's about who you are, what you've built, and how you carry yourself." He took a breath. "This building is my legacy, and I expect it to be run by people who understand that legacy isn't about color or bias, it's about excellence and respect." Claire felt tears prick at her eyes. She hadn't meant to judge, but now she saw the harm her assumptions had caused. Marcia stepped forward again. "We will be making immediate changes to the front office team. Training programs will be implemented to address these issues. And moving forward, we will ensure that every guest is treated with the respect they deserve." Devon gave a small nod. "That's a good start. Because respect isn't optional here, it's the foundation." As the meeting dispersed, Claire approached Devon. "Mr. Cole, I'm sorry. I didn't know." He looked at her with something softer now. "Knowing isn't enough. What matters is what you do with that knowledge." Claire nodded, humbled. The hum of whispered conversations cutting through the tense air. Every eye was fixed on her, and at the front of the room stood the man who had shaken her world just hours ago, Devon Cole, the same man she had doubted, questioned, and called security on. Claire's throat tightened. Her heart pounded like a warning drumbeat in her chest. She wanted to say something, anything, to explain herself, to apologize, to undo the damage, but words felt small and fragile compared to the weight of what had just happened. "Claire." Devon's voice was calm, measured, almost gentle, but filled with an undeniable authority. Transparent. "I'm not angry," he said. "I'm disappointed. Because what happened today was a failure not just of protocol, but of imagination." Claire blinked, confused. "Imagination?" "Yes," Devon said. "Imagination, the ability to see beyond assumptions and prejudices, to recognize people for who they really are, rather than who we expect them to be." He paused, letting the words sink in. You saw me and decided I didn't belong. You thought I was suspicious because I didn't fit your picture of power, because of the color of my skin, because I was alone and quiet, because you relied on a checklist instead of your judgment. Claire's eyes filled with tears, and she looked down, ashamed. I didn't mean to offend anyone, she whispered. Devon shook his head. Intent does not undo impact. You don't get to decide how someone experiences your actions. The room was silent. He turned to the operations manager, Marcia Lynn. Effective immediately. I want a complete review of your front desk policies. Retrain your staff to recognize excellence in all forms, not just the ones that feel familiar. And please, replace the reception team. Gasps rippled across the room. Claire felt her world tilt beneath her feet. But, Devon said, voice softer now, I'm not here to punish. I'm here to build. He smiled. A rare, genuine smile that lit up his face. This building, this block, it belongs to everyone who works here and everyone who walks through those doors. And that includes me. He looked back at Claire. I hope you learn from this, because someday soon, someone else will walk through that door, and they shouldn't have to prove they belong. Claire nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. As Devon turned to leave, the room felt different, lighter, charged with a new energy. The receptionist who had called security on the man who owned the building was now learning the hardest lesson of all. Power isn't just in ownership or wealth. Power is in seeing others with clarity and respect.